So the month name, if I can get the pronunciation right from my memory, Eostromonath, is an Anglo-Saxon name for a month named in spring in Anglo-Saxon Britain. But the idea that it's named after a pagan goddess is very flimsy. There is literally, and I mean literally, one reference to that in all of history that we have documented. And that one reference comes from a 8th century Northumbrian monk called Bede, or the Venerable Bede. He went around and documented the history of the English people. I have his book upstairs. It's interesting, but this is the only time it's referenced that this month has a relation to some pagan goddess. So here's what he says. He says, Eostromonath has a name which is now translated Paschal month, and which was once called after a goddess of theirs named Eostra, in whose honour feasts were celebrated in that month. Now they designate that Paschal season by her name, calling the joys of the new rite by that time-honoured name of the old observance. Now this isn't to say that Bede was wrong, that this didn't ever happen, but, and it's kind of a big but, if it did, and there was some pagan goddess named this that somewhere in the north of England in the 8th century named that time of year of spring after, it would have been a very minor local deity, really. It was not some widespread pagan practice that people all across the continent worshipped. This is the one single reference to any goddess called by that name. So it's quite a large leap to then say that just because this springtime goddess existed in the 8th century, that the church of that time was somehow influenced by this paganism, that they then had to overwrite it with their own festival, considering Easter or Pascha had been celebrated in Britain and all across Northern Europe and wherever else from Jerusalem, spreading outwards since Passover, but particularly since the resurrection, or at least since the 2nd century as a specific annual festival that was done by the church all over the place. And more interestingly, if we look at the root words for this, the root word of Eostra means east or dawn. And in some other renditions, according to an etymological dictionary of the English language, Esther and Oster are early English and German words that both have their root in Aus, A-U-S, which means east, shine or dawn, in various forms. So it's more likely that Ostra is simply a word that describes the season. So Eostromonath is quite simply East month, due to the position of the sun at the time of year, and there you go. So even if there was a local deity for the spring equinox or whatever, that would be it. Not some worldwide, global, pagan goddess or ritual or celebration that all of Europe celebrated, that the Christian church came and stamped all over. That's just not what happened here, and there's no evidence for that at all. There's barely evidence for a goddess. But the fun fact is that the even more primitive root, like the German one, the AUS os, comes from the word. Primitive root is derived from, I'm probably going to butcher this, so any German followers, sorry, Auferstehung, which means resurrection. So the very primitive root word is resurrection. It's baked into the words and language. Not to mention that every other language around the world that doesn't have some Germanic root like English calls this time of year Pascha in some form. It's always linked to Passover. It's only because of this English-German derivative root through time that we get the word Easter through that word Ostra. It's not looking good for this pagan argument, really, is it? Now, eggs and bunnies. Also, no real pagan connection either. The bunny, which was known as the... I'm probably going to say this wrong. I'm trying to read the right word, but... Osterhorse. I don't speak German. I'm sorry. But it was the Easter bunny, or the Easter hare, I think it was actually originally. And around the 17th century, when immigrants went from Germany across Europe to America, they took their local legends and whatnot, this bunny hare that comes around this time of year. And those immigrants took their stories. I mean, that might be some random, I won't say paganism, because that's just some blanket casual term people like to throw around, and it's probably just some local tradition, fairy tale type thing, who knows. I mean, someone might know. But it was just a thing that got imported to America and then commercialized, long story short. Similar happened with the eggs, but they come from a medieval tradition, a church-based Christian tradition, not pagan, where, because of Lent and the dietary restrictions for the fast, eggs were not eaten. So obviously during this time, Middle Ages, a lot of people kept hens. They laid their own eggs to eat in their houses. They didn't go to the Asda or whatnot, go down the co-op and buy a tray of eggs. They had hens that laid them for them. And hens don't care about Lent. They keep popping them out. So people gathered them up and waited until Easter Sunday when they broke the fast and could eat again. And you can probably see where this is going. And this sort of bylaw of the church, a canon of a council in 692, told people to not eat meats and things and to keep their eggs and not eat them. Sometime around the 13th century, people started painting these eggs while they waited. I think they painted them red as a symbolism of Jesus' blood that he shed. And when they cracked the eggs, it was like the empty tomb. So it just became more of a visual aid to tell the Easter story. Maybe for children, probably. And again, something that got transported by immigrants later on when they went to America and... not America, France, I meant to say. In the 1700s, the chocolate eggs appeared in France in the court of Louis the... Let me get my Roman numerals right. 14th. In 1725, solid chocolate eggs were produced. Then the first proper sort of Easter egg appeared in Britain in 1873. And in 1875, Cadbury's created the modern Easter egg, basically, out of this, and wrapped it in their fancy foils and things like that. And there you go. Basically, medieval Christians couldn't eat their eggs. They started painting them, used them as a visual tool to speak about the resurrection, and ate them all on Easter Sunday when they broke their Lenten fast. Thus, Easter eggs were born and eventually turned into chocolate and commercialized like everything else. Same with the Easter Bunny. German immigrants brought that to America from their own folklore, which was then turned into chocolate and commercialized. We like to turn things into chocolate, it seems, as a people. Which I'm not complaining, I love chocolate. But not anything to do with paganism. It's Christian traditions, if anything, and some random rabbit from Germany. So, there you go. Feel free to look all this up and fact check me, but it's all history. Enjoy Easter.